Coming up on the Week 10 postgame show, Aidan and Maya standing by. Only 2 games to close out the last night of the regular season, but that means it's playoff time, and so we have our playoff matchups to get at. A historic rivalry renewed in the quarterfinals. I'm not happy about it. It's okay. We'll talk about it. It actually makes for some good predictions, some good, analysis, because there's a lot of different ways this can go, as we talked about this season, including some really good Week 10 games to close out the regular season, a couple of close ones, and we'll get to all that and more. And we have some matchups from the regular season to talk about when it comes to previewing these playoff matchups for every matchup that we're about to see, because every team played every team. So that's always fun to kind of have that to go off of and then see how different it is in the playoffs, because it is March, it is playoff time here in the Legacy Leagues. It's going to be good. I'm very excited. Kicking off with the quarterfinals. Someone who's also very good, Ultra Barber Salon in West Warwick, the official barbershop of the Legacy Leagues. Aidan's going to go there soon. We need video footage when Aidan does go there. I'm very excited for that. DeFusco and Sun Fence, Edge Spray, helping all the athletes keep their traction on the court. We'll be doing more with them. But the playoffs, man, you got to be looking your best for the playoffs. I even need a haircut. I'm going there soon, so we'll see how that goes. It is happening because I have some, it's my month, guys. As the commissioner, it's like my time to shine with the finals, with All-Star Night, all that stuff. So Ultra Barber Salon has you covered, especially our finals MVP and regular season MVP. We'll get some free coupons, some free haircuts. What's better than that? So you definitely want to win those awards. Stay tuned for that. But let's get to the Week 10 postgame show. Yeah. This is the Legacy League. Tell me where your legacy be. Yeah. Week 10. Lob City, nowhere to be found. They are the 6th seed. Never thought I would say that. I'm not sure if hell is freezing over, but we're going to get to all those playoff matchups and the bracket in a second. You can find it online as we speak. But first, Week 10. And we'll start with, we could just start with the first game, and we'll go in order of kind of how the night went, because it was the Road Dogs 84-76 over Rags. The Road Dogs had the 1 seed locked up. Rags, that game really didn't matter because they could have lost that game, and then as long as they defeated Lob City, which they ended up doing by forfeit, they would have been the 5 seed. So neither team really anything to play for, and it was still a really close game. So let's talk about that one and some of the key pieces from that matchup. Kevin Views has been on a heater, and so we talked about Shaq Cologne. He's still been good, but those first couple weeks of the season, he was dropping 30 a night. Well, Kevin Views is right there with him. 29 for him in this one. 5 of 17 from 3 is a little surprising. It didn't even... I was watching, I promise, but I was also doing other things. It didn't feel... 5 of 17 is like, oof. And it didn't feel that way. So maybe he made them when they needed him, which sounds about right for Kevin Views. Noah James with 25 himself. Demoy Ennis with a double-double, 15 and 12. And then for Rags, Rich Hall and Josh Perry rounding into form at the right time. Joe Secator right behind him with 17, but Rich and Josh with 22 each. Rich Hall also with 15 rebounds and 5 assists. And so if they're going to start getting that type of performance, Maya, from a Rich Hall, Josh Perry, 9 of 17, 4 of 8 from 3. When he's hitting threes, that helps his game. You can say that about a lot of players, but especially for someone like Josh Perry. And then, Joe Secator is still there, and he was 7 of 12 from the floor. So Rags, 13 of 28 from 3, I think is the story. 47% from them. That'll keep them in a lot of games, Maya. Was that it? Were they just making shots? How did they hang with this Rags team?
Yeah, I think their 3-headed monster in Josh Perry, Rich Hall, and Joe Secator is as best as you can get in this league. And yeah, they are able to hit threes at a very high clip, and that is how they stayed in this game. And I think they are a dangerous team if they, there's a lot of ifs when it comes to the playoff situation, but they are a dangerous team when they are moving the ball. They go on some spells where they kind of play one-on-one basketball, and that brings them down to a deficit that's at 15. But because they can hit threes and they have 3 really good players at any moment, that 15-point lead, and I think in this game, for an example, can turn to a 6 point lead really quickly. So I think that's what makes Rags dangerous and what makes them able to stay in these games, and that's going to be important for the playoffs. Is their ability to hit threes, and these three can score in a bunch of different ways, and that's going to be dangerous for the Air Mambas in the playoff series. I won't get to that right now, but yeah, I think if they have it on and they're able to play more cohesive basketball, the Rags could be a problem.
Well, and it's a good preview. They do get the Air Mambas in the 4-5. The Rags got the 5 seed with that forfeit over Lob City to close out the season. And the Air Mambas, who we'll get to in a second, fell in week 10, falling all the way to the 4 seed. So now it's 4 seed Air Mambas, 5 seed Rags, and actually the winner of that game will take on the Road Dogs. So there you go. Speaking of all the teams we're talking about, the Road Dogs do get a bye to the semifinals as the 1 seed and will take on the winner of the 4-5. We're going to get to that preview in a second, but it was the Air Mambas winning both of those matchups. Most recently in week 7, which I think it was about a month ago, won by 2 over Rags. And so that's kind of the newer Rags team that we're seeing. Staying in a lot of these games is going to be an interesting quarterfinal matchup for Mambas against the Rags. We'll get to how the Mambas did in week 10 in a second, but Aidan, the Road Dogs continue. Kevin Views and Noah James leading the way. They get a bye now, and so they get to kind of watch everyone else battle it out. But go wherever you'd like in this one, and then I want to get to some playoff stuff. But yeah, what'd you see from Rags to keep it close? Because we can do the quarter breakdown. They won the fourth quarter. It was a close game in the first quarter. Rebounding wise, they kind of got killed. So I think that was a big thing. 43-29 is not ideal. But again, when you're making all those threes, and they shot way better than the Road Dogs in this game. So I'll throw it to you now. 52.5% from the floor for Rags, 47% like we talked about from 3. For the Road Dogs, 40-ish, 41% from the floor, and 27.5% from 3. So there's a lot more rebounds, and they got a lot of offensive rebounds. That's second chance points that I'm sure Rags would like to prevent. But how did they keep it close, and what stands out from this one, Aidan?
So, like Maya said, speaking for on behalf of Rags, when you have Josh Perry, Joe Segator, and Rich Hall as your triple-headed monster, you create a lot of opportunities to score at the rim and dish out the ball. But when those three are your main focus, you need to have a fourth. I'm not. This isn't a discredit to any Rags player; they're all very good players. But you need to have a fourth that not that not that they command a bigger role or draw more of a defensive side to them, but you need a fourth that they need a big. That's what I'm trying to say.
Or someone who's going to hit shots,
Yeah,
right?
you need
When the driving kick comes, yeah.
Yep, you're gonna need a big, or you need that fourth person who isn't afraid to take those shots or get in there. And this kind of missing. We haven't seen Clarence Brown since week 3 or 4, maybe. I don't know what's happening. Hope everything's well with him. But when he was in there with Rags, he's a bigger body, so he can kind of get more room in the paint and try to out rebound or get more rebounds. And yes, Rich Hall had 15 rebounds, but he had half of his team's rebounds. And that kind of says something like, yeah, the Road Dogs are missing a bunch. You saw Kevin 5 of 17. So there's a bunch of chances for Rags to get those rebounds back. And then if you look, even Rags offensive rebounds, there's no offensive rebounds in that. They have 7 offensive rebounds. That's 7 second chance points or 7 second chances to go out compared to the Road Dogs who had 16. So they obviously lost the rebounding battle. And I think they they just need that fourth, or they need that big who can really kind of push them over. Adding Rich Hall this year and adding Joe was very good for the Rags, and they've kind of put it together. And like Maya said, they're they always seem to be in games, and I think that's just good basketball players and them having good IQ and understanding what each other has to do in order to continue playing the game and being back in this game. Uh, for the Road Dogs, man, you just said Kevin Views, like he has been on an insane 4 week tear. Like, yeah, in the beginning of the season he was still scoring 20 points, but these last 4 weeks he's at 29, 23. Now I think he had 37 a week or two ago. And like, yeah, he scored that before, but these you felt this more. It was more impactful, and it was more of a Kevin Views game. And I think, like I said last week, they definitely needed somebody to step up with Omar and Ethan going down, and having someone else be that de facto number 2. And we all know Kevin can do it at MVP in the Mass League, but he really proved it. And I think the Road Dogs are on a great path to getting their second championship and winning the championship this week or this league this season. Overall, a very good game. As long as Rags stays consistent and stays playing their own basketball and hitting their threes, they have a chance. Like we previewed, they have a chance against the Air Mambas. We'll talk about that later when we get there. But I do think they have a chance. And as for the Road Dogs, just keep playing the basketball you're playing, and you'll go from there.
The Road Dogs are poised, and this is going to be their team, right? And so it's going to be the Noah James, Demoy Ennis kind of focus, and then Kevin Views has been joining that party, taking a lot of the pressure off of those two and making it easier for them, creating kind of the three key pieces for them. It may not be until the finals, and we'll get to that preview in a second, but someone else, I'll just get on the record now and be right when we get there. Someone else, for the Road Dogs to be successful the way they want to be successful, is going to have to contribute more than they have been for the Road Dogs. Whether that's Karan Bostic, Anthony Lyons, Zeki Burgess, they have to do something, and that doesn't mean offensively. But I think that fourth piece, they've been trying to see what player fits best. And sometimes it's matchup based, and that's great. You can have some different options and make it work. That might come back to bite them if that person isn't making shots against a load management where they're going to help off that fourth person and kind of make it a 4-on-3 situation because they know that person's not going to be able to beat them. That can make it more difficult for a Kevin Views and a Noah James and a Demoy Ennis. So we'll get there. That's going to be a very interesting piece of this Road Dogs playoff run. But at least, they, by far and away, 7-1, they earned the bye. Not that load management didn't, but they earned the 1 seed. They earned the bye, and so it's kind of good that it fell that way at least, where they are the top seed and earned it throughout the season. All right, let's get to our second matchup from Week 10. The battle for the 2, 3, 4 seed came down to load management against the Air Mambas. Oh, God, everything's out of order. 83-75 for load management. And a lot to talk about from this one because load management kind of won the first quarter. Mambas made it close, and then a big third quarter. It was a big third quarter run, and yet the Air Mambas still almost flipped it in the fourth and tried to come back. But it really was that third quarter that was the big difference. Malik Chase, 27 points, 9 rebounds. One of his better games. Really was all over the place. Cutting, rebounding, like we just talked about, even had 6 assists. Was noticeably their second best player in was their second best player in this game. I was going to give Leonard Williams a lot of love because he had a lot of impact. 12 assists, defense. He was awesome as well with 14 points. Almar Sabat, 26 points, but definitely led the charge for this team as he has all season. Still only 9 of 25 from 3 for them. And they actually lost the rebounding battle slightly, 32-28 to the Air Mambas, who had 5 players score at least 14 points. So, Aidan, we'll just flip it back to Aidan, and then we'll go to Maya too, because looking at this game, let's let Aidan start with the Air Mambas and what was missing during that third quarter, because it was close throughout. Kind of besides that. The third quarter was just a run that the Air Mambas really didn't have any answers for. How come?
Well, I think it was a combination of things. Now, we've talked about Shaq Cologne a lot this season. He's played very, very well, and he's been super beneficial to this Mambas team. In the last 2 weeks, he hasn't really got it going. Like, yes, he had 16 points this week, but, you just don't feel those impactful 16 points. Usually he's there quarters 1 through 4, and it felt like in this game he was there quarters 2 and quarters 4. Where now I don't know, I think maybe it's a matchup thing or he's just having an off night, but I think that is where it mainly fell. And I think when one of your players is having an off night, not saying he's averaging 22 points a game, 16 is not very much an off night, but an off night in terms of feeling the impact of him and how impactful he is as a player. Other players need to step up. And Chris Vincenzo and Chris Fake, they always step up, but there's only so much they can do. And I think that's where it fell flat. Now, they didn't have Steve Simone this game, was the only person that wasn't on their bench or with them. And I was saying that to Jake on scoreboard, and I was like, "Well, you bring Steve Simone in, you're guaranteed 2 to 3 threes," and I think that's just kind of what was missing. You were missing that other option that when Chris Vincenzo or Chris Fager, or even Shaq Holm, when one of them goes to the bench, we all know each of the Mambas can score. But you sub out one of them and you put Steve Simone in, you know that you're going to get good looks at threes because he's going to shoot them deep and he's tall, so he's going to be able to get over everybody. And I think that is another thing I noticed was Shaq just playing not poorly, but he wasn't impactful. And then the absence of Steve Simone, I think, just kind of ultimately led for the Air Mambas' downfall. They've had a very, very good season, but the last couple weeks has just kind of been back to the old Air Mambas. They're not playing iso ball like they have before. It's just there's not much lack of communication either because Ramsey was on the sidelines and he was coaching and everybody's coaching, but it's just kind of they go down and yes, they know they can fight out of it, but I think internally they're like they've given up. I know they haven't given up, but internally it feels like they have, and I think that needs to not happen. It's easier said than done for them. It needs to not happen for them to be successful in the playoffs.
Well, that was one of the things, and then we'll get to load management and Maya in a second. On the bench, you could hear them saying, like, stop taking the first shot, like stop playing that iso ball style. And I think that's really what that stands out from the third quarter to me, of just hearing that and then watching it. And it's those lulls that can't happen anymore, right? The regular season is one thing. Everybody in the playoffs knows it's one and done, and so that's the key. Load management, Maya, in that third quarter, let's flip it around. What changed for them? Because they're consistent now with how they've been playing, right? And really throughout the whole game, throughout the past couple games, I believe it's a 4-game winning streak. As they finish 5-3 as the 2 seed, they also get a bye with the Air Mambas. They've been able as a team to shoot it well enough to have to kind of respect it, and I'm sure that they would like to shoot it better. Their defense has been there, and they've been able to get offense playing as a unit, playing as a team, and we saw that in the third quarter. What else, if anything, stands out from that third quarter, which was really the difference for load management, where they opened the game up and then were able to finish the deal that way, Maya?
I think the main thing that stood out to me, like what I watched, was load manage. Like every team gets out and runs, but I thought it was interesting how even when the Air Mambas were making a shot, Almar was already down the court waiting for the ball, that an outlet pass, and they had the Air Mambas kind of scrambling on defense. And I thought that was interesting because, most teams, they get out and run when it's a missed shot, like a long rebound or a block or a steal. Like they're getting out and running after they made a bucket. So I think speeding up the Air Mambas helped them get out to this lead. And like I said, I feel like their defense always hits in the third quarter. I don't know what it is, but the whole team has fast hands. They're able to slow down drives, even if they don't get the steal. Like they're able to mess up someone's dribble with their fast hands or deflect a pass, and then the team has to kick it back out and reset. So I think that's really what helped them, and them getting out in transition so much. The Air Mama started to, they're noticing they're getting down. They're starting to settle, like you said, for the first shot. They're taking the first shot. They're settling for a 3. They're not trying to get to the rim anymore. And that's what I think changed in the third quarter, is just load management, like saying, okay, we're going to score as fast as we can and get back on defense, get a stop, and then score as fast as we can again. And they just kind of did that multiple times, and all of a sudden you're looking at a 10-point lead, and the other team is shooting a 3, you miss, they're getting out again. So I think they have a really interesting way in extending their leads and getting out in transition. I think that's been really helping them over their win streak these past few weeks. And during the game, I was hearing MVP chants for Almar, and he is certainly a good player that can score on all 3 levels. So load management, they worked their way up to this 2 seed, and they're a good team. They're a good team that can be a problem in come playoff time.
Definitely going to be a tough out for whoever has to play them, whether it's the Halfway Crooks or Lob City, which is how the bracket fell. So that'll be an interesting couple of games on that side of the bracket. They're interesting all over, but especially how that can play out as we get to a matchup in the finals. Just a few more stats. Chris Fague with 17-8. Shaq Colon, we talked about it, with 16-6. Chris Vincenzo with 15-11, and Mario Valerio 15-7. And so, load management earns the 2 seed, like we talked about, and Maya, just kind of piggybacking on what you said, it's that momentum, right? And I talk about it kind of flipping the court sometimes and putting it at an angle in your favor, right? Where it looked like load management was kind of running more downhill. I realized the court never changes, right? But everything was going their direction, and the Air Mambas were kind of having to battle uphill during that third quarter. Whether it was partially their own fault, partially things the Air Mamba, the load management was doing defensively against them. That combination kind of started to tilt the court in favor of load management for a solid 5, 6, 7 minutes during that third quarter. It was a lot to handle for the Mambas. All right, let's get to the playoff matchups, and we've already talked about the quarterfinal matchups, but I'm going to give you the full seed breakdown. We're going to do some looking back to when these teams played in the regular season, and we'll have our analysts make some picks. This is the good stuff. All right. So we talked about the Road Dogs getting the 1. Load management is the 2 seed with the, they finished 5-3. So did the Halfway Crooks with their forfeit in week 10. But that head-to-head matchup in week 9, so last week, was the difference. So there you go. So load management gets the bye. Halfway Crooks are the 3. Air Mambas fall to the 4 with the loss. And the Halfway Crooks win in week 10, like we talked about last week. Rags is the 5. And Lob City, with 2 losses in week 10, is the 6 seed. So that's not a fun surprise for whoever gets to play the 6 seed. Oh, wait, it's the Halfway Crooks, which will be the second game in the quarterfinals. First, we'll go right in order. Let me get the schedule up here. So the quarterfinals on March 8th, Sunday, March 8th, will start at 7 o'clock with our 4-5 matchup that we talked about. It will be the Air Mambas and Rags facing off. So they played twice in the regular season, guys. Week 2, the Mambas won 69-57. Let me just pop open this box score, but that was one of, and I believe kind of the start of the Shaq Colon show. And so 27 points for him, 10 rebounds as well. Chris Vincenzo with 21 and 13. And so they were able to kind of jump out early, 24-9 in that first quarter, and then played even with Rags, but that was enough to get the win. More importantly, in week 7, which was, a month and 2 days ago, because of how the schedule kind of shook out, it was the Rags did win. This was, oh, sorry. I apologize. I messed up earlier in the show. This is what I get for not doing my homework properly. It was the Rags getting a 2-point win. So there you go. The Rags win before week 10 was against the Air Mambas. They jumped out in the first quarter, 21-9, and then were able to hold off. If you remember, they were kind of up in the fourth quarter, and then a big fourth quarter for the Mambas, a ton of threes. Yeah, they came back and made it very interesting. But I believe that was the game, and you guys can nod. They had the 3-pointer to win it, and didn't they go for it a little early? Wasn't it? Or no? Am I crazy? It's all right. I think so. Aidan shaking his head.
Yes, I think it was. I think Vincenzo had an open shot, but he just shot it a little earlier, and I remember them being
yes.
like, "Oh, what the hell?"
Exactly. What the hell is right? Rich Hall with 37 in that matchup, which I think is the better matchup to kind of go off of. Josh Perry with 16, no Joe Secator in that Week 7 matchup. Both teams shot it here and there. Rebounds were in Rags' favor in that one, and it was really Rich Hall, 37 and 7 in that one. So we know a lot of the usual suspects. We talked, they split the 2 matchups. Yeah, my notes are straight up wrong, so go me for doing my homework. It was the Rags winning in Week 7, and the Mambas in Week 2. All right. Before you guys make your picks, we're going to do this over the next 2 weeks, and I forget what I was watching, but somebody brought up a question of, instead of like who's the X factor, there's a ton of different ways you can do this, and we kind of talk about a lot of the same players. I want to do it in this framework, so I'm going to put you guys on the spot. Who controls the ceiling for each team? Okay, so it is going to be a player. I know I made the same face Aidan did. I was like, oh, that's interesting, and I wrote that down. So it's not necessarily the best player, but for the team in this matchup to be successful before you make your pick, okay, don't have to spend a lot of time. You can even just rattle them off. But we'll go to Aidan first, put him on the spot for this matchup, Mambas and Rags. Who controls the ceiling for each team? And then you can make your pick and explain a little bit. But it's an interesting way to talk about, in one game, the game slows down. Let's get it out of the way now. It's a race to 60 or 70, probably 60, right? It was 68, 66 in week 7, which both teams had a lot to play for. So there you go. It's probably going to be a repeat in that range score-wise. So it's going to be slower, more defense, probably a little more missed shots than usual as playoff things happen. But Aidan, who controls the ceiling for each team to be successful in this quarterfinal matchup?
Oh my goodness, I couldn't unmute myself. So who controls the ceiling for each team? For the Mambas, I would probably have to go with Shaq Cologne, just based off of what we've seen this whole season and how well the Mambas have played when Shaq is on. Shaq's always on, but when he's being impactful and, like Maya said, not settling for the first shot in 2 seconds when you get the ball over half court. So I think Shaq controls their ceiling because if he's being impactful and playing very well, it opens up the floor for more of the other Mambas to, if he's driving in, he's going to command people in the box with him. Whereas if he's not playing well, they might sag off. But I think Shaq Cologne. Now for the ceiling for the Rags, um, it's easy to say Rich Hall, but I'm not gonna say Rich Hall. I think it doesn't rest on anybody's shoulders, but I think it's Joe Segator. When you were going back on the other two matchups, Joe, Josh, and Rich haven't played all together against the Mambas. It was Rich and Joe in the first matchup, and then Josh and Rich in the second matchup. So I think I think with Joe, we noticed in this game, previous game, that when he starts hitting his shots and being more motivated and being into the game, he makes the game different. Like he's gonna go to the rack, he'll score, or he'll sit at the 3 point line and do what he needs to do. But I, if Joe starts going off, it's going to be very hard to choose which defender you want on Joe or Rich. Because yes, those are two of the most explosive players on the Rags, but then we're leaving out Josh Perry, who also can score kind of whenever he wants. So it's hard to pinpoint that, but I do think that Joe, so oh my God, I can't speak. That Joe sets the ceiling for the Rags in this matchup, and Shaq sets the ceiling for the Mambas in this matchup. And for my winner,
Hold on. Save your pick. I like it. Hold on.
okay,
We'll come back. Maya, this is good. All right. So Maya, you can give your player that controls the ceiling for each team. The matchups in this matchup are going to be very interesting. Who's guarding who, right? And you start to think about who's Chris Vincenzo going to guard, right? If somebody gets hot, are they going to have to switch that? Especially now with those three, we expect to all be there and playing, right? Josh Perry's back, Joe Secator, Rich Hall. So go ahead, Maya. For each team, you can start with the Mambas again. Who controls their ceiling, and then give your player for Rags as well.
So I was thinking Shaq, but I'm gonna go Chris Vincenzo. I think he is their main ball handler, and I think it's gonna be on him to make sure that his team gets a good look outside of the first look. I think it's gonna be on him to make sure that the team is playing together and moving the ball and driving and not settling for threes. I think he is their one of their better players when it comes to getting to the rim and finishing through contact. And so I think that he sets the tone for this team in this matchup. For the Rags, I'm going the same type of vibe, and I think it's Josh Perry. He calls out during the game. He calls out the plays. He tells his teammates where he wants them to line up. Where he wants the screen, when to give the screen. And that's going to be really important for the Rags because, like I mentioned before, they have these moments. They have these moments where they don't really play as a team. So they're going to need him, even when he's not on the floor, to make sure that all four players that are on the court know what they're doing and know what they're doing on defense, whether they're playing zone or man. And I think it's going to be on Josh to communicate with his whole team about what is happening on the floor.
I like this question. I think I nailed it, guys. I think this is like one of my better things I've ever done. All right, you can give your pick in one sentence. Okay, not one word, but we're gonna keep it moving because then I want to do some bigger picture. I'm gonna put you guys on the spot for a champion too. Okay, so we have some more things to do. So Aidan, who do you have winning this matchup, and then one sentence why?
so between the Air Mambas and the Rags, the 4-5 matchup, I oh Lord, um, They split the season 1-1, so there's no leeway on which team's better or which team's not because they're both 1-1 against each other. I personally I'm going to pick the Rags. The Mambas, I know they watch this. I know they're going to be annoyed and angry that I picked against them, but the reason I'm picking the Rags is for one of the reasons Maya said about Josh. Just Josh will control the game when he needs to, and I think someone who's more vocal and out there with telling their team what to do, how to do it, when to do it, and why you need to do it, or and how you need to do it, will give them a push over the Mambas.
Perfect. And I'll say, go ahead. Maya, yeah, who do you have in your one sentence?
Yeah, I'm right there with Aidan, and my one sentence is kind of just Rags at full strength. I think all three players, all three of their main head people playing could will lead them to this win. So I have the Rags winning.
And a lot of it could really just come down to, for both of these teams, who starts out hotter, right? Because both of these teams, I think, play differently when they're trailing versus when things are going their way and they're making shots, right? And sometimes it is as simple as who's going to make more shots, but maybe it's who's going to make more shots earlier and who's going to win that first quarter and build that lead and kind of put the pressure on the other team, where then maybe you start doing some of that uncharacteristic things that we talked about that kind of leads to your demise, right? And so, a couple weeks ago, we were, Aidan and Maya, whether she was on the show or not, we were talking about the Air Mambas as a 2 seed. We did their social clip, or can they win a championship? And just for the record, both of them picked Rags, and I think Rags is playing with house money, right? This their kind of their second season, their first season with this group. The Mambas have been building to this, right? They've talked about it. This is a great chance for them, a great season for them. They want to make a deep run. We would have to come up with the phrase "Mambas are gonna Mamba" if they pull this off and lose, okay, in a bad way. And so I just want to put that out there. I hope they don't Mamba. I hope that they break from their previous ways. But it would be just, right? They beat the halfway crooks, right? They looked better than the halfway crooks. They beat them. You can go through the season of how their season went, and it would just, I expect this to be a very good game. I expect all the games to be very good games. This is going to be a good one as well. It can really go either way. But 2 votes for Rags. All right, let's get to the other matchup. A 2-time finals rematch, but both teams look very different. To close out the quarterfinals, how many times have we said this? Halfway Crooks and Lob City. We've never said it in a 3-6 matchup, and so Lob City, technically finishes 1-7, which is crazy. They almost had as many losses in this season as they've had over 9 or 10 years, so start to do the math on that. It is absolutely crazy. Sure, they forfeited 2 games. I get it. We get it. But still, this is where we find ourselves. Halfway Crooks and Lob City. This is what the halfway crooks get for not closing out that game against load management. They were up, right? They didn't deserve to win because they didn't win, but they were up in the fourth quarter and the final minutes, right? You got to just close out that game, which a lot of times teams are able to do. Not the halfway crooks. This is what happens, right? When you don't do that, it allows load management to control their own destiny. They take care of business and they get the bye. So, halfway crooks, when they played Lob earlier this season, because they forfeited their second matchup, so we can't even go off of that. It was all the way back in week 2. It was in 2025. The halfway crooks won 85-78, and it was Lob's first loss on the season. They had just won week 1 over load management, and if you remember, close first quarter. It was a huge second quarter led by, throughout the entire game, Tyler Sicione, kind of his coming out party. 39 points, 14 of 19 from the floor. He made 6 3-pointers. Just, had flames shooting out of his you-know-what, right? Just the entire game. Just could not miss. Jared Hansen with 18, and Nick Lemoyne only with 10. And so there you go. Rebounds, Lob City dominated that. Taj Eddington, 24. Cody Crawford with 23. Elijah Brown with 23, and so those big 3 really led the way for Lob City. They're going to need that again because I would expect Nick Mahar to be out as we've mentioned. No Victor Cashew Jr. in that game. I expect him to be there this time. So Lob City will most likely looking like have 5 players, which is what they've kind of done all season. And for the halfway crooks, no David DePina in that game. He does qualify because he played in the 2 games and the forfeit. You at that point, you can't really say whether he was going to be there or not. So there you go. So that counts as his 3rd game played. And no Aidan Dozos in that game. And early reports are he may not be there in this matchup either. So he may not play Lob City at all. Hopefully that doesn't happen. But you guys can take that for what it's worth. Break this down as if both teams are full, right? I mean, Lob City has their 5 guys that we expect. I think that's fair because of injuries to go off of those 5. And the halfway crooks with David DePina and Aidan Dozos, okay? And so you can go any direction you'd like. Maya looks ready. So we're going to put her on the spot first, all right? So kind of the same deal, right? Which players for each team controls the ceiling of these teams when it comes to their success in the playoffs, Maya?
For the halfway crooks, I'm going to go with Nick Lemoyne. I think he is their best all-around player, offense, defense, and setting up for his teammates. And I think that's going to be important. The first game, or the only matchup against Lob City, he has 10 points. And, although it didn't matter because Tyler was on from everywhere, I think it's going to be important that he has a bit more of a presence this game because Lob City is still going to be a tough out no matter how many games they've won during the regular season. They're still in games and they still make it tough. So I think Nick is the player for the halfway crooks. And for Lob City, I'm going to go Cody Crawford. I think the 2 games they played in February, they shot poorly from 3, and they've kind of been shooting. Most of their games, they shot poorly from 3. And when I watch him play, he not only does he set up the offense, he'll have, I think, back-to-back threes that he'll hit, and they look beautiful, and then he can't hit another 3. And I think if Lob City wants to win, they have to be able to shoot from 3. They can't shoot 20% from 3. They have to at least get to like 34%. And I think that starts with him being able to knock down shots and get the looks he wants to get. So that is my player for Lob City. If he's able to hit threes and they're able just to shoot 34, like I said, 35, whatever I said, I think they'll be in this game at the end.
All right, well, take it easy. All right, you're still on the halfway crook. All right, just stop it right there, okay? But you're very right. It does give Lob City another score, right? Which and Cody Crawford has not been hitting as many as he usually would this season. So you know what that means. You play the purple team, all things start going your way, right? When it comes from when it comes to 3-point, that's what happens. See Gian Abedisian in past seasons. It's just something with the purple. All right, so I expect Lob City to make a ton of threes in this game for sure, and it's the playoffs, right? So all kidding aside, it's not like this game is too big for these guys, right? So I expect them to, and I expect all these teams to be playing their best, and I expect Cody Crawford to look like Cody Crawford that we know can be in there. All right, 2 very good picks. And Nick Lemoyne, we go back to that Week 2 matchup, really passive in that game because of what was happening, right? Like, Tyler's not going to miss. This is great. It kind of makes everything a little easier. Since then, I think the team, and it's easy for me to say, I'm on the damn team, has kind of found a way to get Nick more involved because it's very important, right? And to use what he does well while also letting others, so I think the balance is there, and he's been more assertive too when he's needed to be. See that 4th quarter, right? Against load management. He, like I said last week, was going to be the reason the halfway crooks won that game. Right? Made a ton of huge plays, ton of huge shots in that 4th quarter and helped build that lead that they couldn't hold. Damn it. Oh, God, I'm still pissed. Aidan, all right. Really quick, actually, to make this even harder for you guys. Lob City's last 4 games that they played. I realize we're going back to February and even January. Let's just go in order of most recent backwards, right? Road Dogs, they lost by 3. Load Management, they lost by 1. Road Dogs, the first time, which was in January 11th, they lost by 1. The Air Mambas, the lone time they played the Air Mambas, they lost by 4. All right, and so then we talked about it goes right back to that halfway crooks Lob City game. So sure, 1-5 is their record. They're 8 points away from being who knows what, right? And they've been in a lot of these close games, right there. Usually, those are the games a Lob City team, regardless of who's on the team, they win. You're in a game in the fourth quarter. It's a close game. They're gonna make the plays, and you're not. That's usually how it goes. And it kind of started with that Air Mambas game where things really just weren't going their way. It's just kind of how it went over those last 4 games they've played. Aidan, your 2 players who control the ceilings for each of these teams.
Well, Maya took both my players, unfortunately. I will piggyback on the Nick Lemoyne thing. I'm going to change my Lob City one, but I will piggyback on Nick Lemoyne. Like Maya said, I do agree. I think Nick Lemoyne is their best all-around player. And yes, he has taken a step back because of the emergence of Tyler and Aidan. But if you need a bucket, you give the ball to Nick because Nick will drive to the rack. We all know he'll drive, and he will punch it if he needs to punch it. Similar to Jared. If you guys need a quick bucket, give it to Jared or Nick. They're gonna go to the rack. They'll get fouled or they'll make the shot. Yes, I think it's Nick. Because Nick can be goofy, Nick can be silly, but when he needs to lock in and play great basketball, he does, and we saw that all last season when he won MVP. He set out to do it, and he did it. And I just think if Nick's having a great game, even though you're saying that Aiden might not be there, I'm still picking Nick even when the whole team's fully there to have the most ceiling. I'm stumbling my words, but I do agree with Nick. I think Nick can have and will have a very good game. For Lob City,
hold on. Give another player. Just say the name on the halfway crooks who someone else you could go with.
Jared Hansen.
Okay, cool, and that's it. Great. All right, your player for Lob City.
My player for Lob City, I was gonna say Cody Crawford. Similar reasons to why Maya did. He hasn't really shot well this year, but if he gets to shooting and shooting threes, boom. I'm gonna say Dub, Victor Cashew Jr. For my answer because anytime I see him play with Lob City, whether it's this season or previous seasons, the intensity is always turned up a little bit more because the intensity is always there, especially when you have Nuri, who Nuri knows basketball. He'll command where to go, what to do, tell you how to do things, and play the right way. But when you add Dub, who's basically similar to Nuri, same different play style, but similar enough to, but they both play defense. They know how to play the game. They understand the game. Dub just kind of, both of them together kind of brings it up. And I do think Dub will be their ceiling because defense, and if he hits his shots. Now, he can shoot and will score, but he doesn't really do that as often because it's not his main role. But if he needs to, he will step up, and I hope that he does step up. So, yes, Nick Lemoyne and i.e. Jared Hansen, and then I don't even know who I said. Oh, I said I said
Dub.
Dub. I'm so sorry. Sorry, Dub.
I guess he's very forgettable. It's all right. Take it out on Aidan, not the halfway crooks. Okay. All right, Maya. Very important here. Okay, it's been a whole season. We know what's been going on. All right, but seriously, who do you think will win? And your one sentence or 1 or 2 sentences why. But who do you have in this one?
Yeah, I'm gonna go halfway crooks, and my sentence is I just all around team depth. I think they have a lot of players that can score, even if they're missing one. So I think that's really important come playoff time. So halfway crooks.
All right, Aidan, who you got?
So I have this reoccurring saying on this show. I said it very, very much last year and the previous year. You don't bet against Lob City, and I'm going to stick with my word, and I don't bet against Lob City, so I will be picking Lob City. Now, I did that during one of the weeks this season, because Joey knows that if he asked me to pick winners between Lob City and whomever, I don't bet against Lob City, so I'm going to pick Lob. So it's a stupid kind of question to ask me because you know my answer. But I'm going to pick Lob, and my one sentence is don't bet against Lob City.
Okay, you can't fight that argument, even though I hope Aidan's wrong, which is how as we can expect it to be. All right, as promised, let's just kind of look at while we have the bracket for the first time. Let's put you guys on the spot and we'll get out of here. All right, so we talked about it. The winner of the Halfway Crooks in Lob City will take on Load Management in the semifinals, right? That's one side. The winner of the Air Mambas in Rags will take on the Road Dogs, the top seed. That's the other side. So, Aidan, first give us your finals and then who you think is going to win, and really not too much analysis. So just kind of give us the two teams and the winner, because we've already talked a lot about all these teams and I'm sure we can figure it out. So who's your finals and who's going to win?
So I hate to be the easy route, but my finals prediction is Road Dogs versus Load Management. I think they've been the two best teams. Well, Road Dogs have been the best team all season. Load Management has been the best team in the last 4 weeks because of their 4-game win streak. My winner, it's tough, but I'm going to go on the back of Load Management. I think they have the depth and the pieces to go up against a Road Dogs team. Now, this is all in the future because, come playoff time, something bad may happen, and I might have jinxed them by saying that, unfortunately. But I'm picking Load Management. I do think they have the depth and the right roster to beat a Road Dogs if it comes to that. So yeah.
All right, Maya, same deal. Who do you have in the finals and who do you have winning it?
So I was kind of feeling the same way as Ian, but to change it, I'm going to go Road Dogs and Halfway Crooks. And my winner, I know I've been on the Halfway Crooks bandwagon since week 1, but I am going to go Road Dogs. I think Road Dogs win it all. This Kevin Views, Noah James, Ennis. I know we've talked earlier in the show about needing a fourth person to step up, but I think with those three, the fourth person may only just have to lock in on defense and not do too much scoring, and I believe that they can win 2 games and make that happen. So I have the Road Dogs winning it all.
Well, it hurts your spot in the bus, the bandwagon, Maya. It really does. But I think a fair way to end it then, after all of that, and Maya just jumping ship. I can't believe it. The Road Dogs top seed, they get the bye. They finished. Maya, what was what was the Road Dogs record? I can't remember.
Are they 6-1?
Yeah, 7-1, and then that one,
7-1.
I don't know who beat the. Yeah, all right, great. That's how it ends. All right, perfect. Aidan knew exactly where I was. He knew exactly where I was going with that. Thank you, everybody. Very fun. No, and our quarterfinal matchups coming up this Sunday at the Oakland Beach Boys and Girls Club. Going to be 2 great games at 7 and 8 o'clock. Setting up 2 awesome semifinals, whichever way they shake out. So, a fun playoffs ahead, and then All-Star Night will actually be on Wednesday, March 18th, in between the semifinals and the finals because of all the snow and a thing called the Super Bowl. We're going to do it on a Wednesday, so it'll be before the finals. We'll be announcing all of that stuff this week, so while you're watching this show, I'm sure the All-Star teams, the contestants for the 3-point and dunk contest will also be out, so keep an eye out for that. And then you can come out on that Wednesday night, which will be something. It'll be a weird night for us, but a Wednesday night for All-Star Night, which would be a lot of fun. So Maya, Aidan, good job. I put you guys on the spot, but I like that question. We're gonna keep that question for sure. It's a different way to talk about these teams, right? We talk about the Rich Halls and the Almar Sabbats, and those guys have as much of an impact as anybody on these games. Kevin Views, we mention him every week. But sometimes it is a secondary player, right? Especially in a one-and-done playoff situation. That's the key. So we'll see who steps up Sunday night in the quarterfinals, and we'll see how these guys did in a couple weeks with their predictions. So for Aidan and Maya, I'm Joey. Check out Ultra Barber Salon in West Warwick, DeFusco and Sun Fence, Edge Spray, and more sponsors to come. Thanks for watching the Week 10 post-game show. The madness is here. Let's get it. Welcome to March.